Good morning and welcome to the Isles of Scilly. My name is Caroline and today is our second day exploring these islands. I am here with my partner Andy, but I've actually had to leave him back at the apartment because yesterday we planned on going out for a sunset photography shoot and he realised that his camera batteries were not only dead but his charger had also broken too. So when the shops opened at 9 o'clock this morning he went and bought a charger and we're just trying to leave him getting that charged up as much as possible. I'm making my way down to the quay because the plan today is that we are going to go along to St Martin's, and whilst I go and stand in the queue and purchase the boat tickets, he can just get that little bit more time charging up his camera batteries.
Yeah, they're valid for a year.
Charged?
2 bars.
Yay, we can take some photographs today.
Yay, hopefully.
Okay, apparently we're on the Britannia, but I heard one of the guides who does the wildlife tours to say that the boat's looking very full. So it might be a different boat.
Well, we'd better throw some people overboard then, so we can get on.
So no sooner had we joined the back of the queue, we then watched our Britannia ferry boat sail away completely full. There is quite a huge queue, so it looks like the Meridian, which is what took us back from St Agnes yesterday, has now rocked up to pick us up. One of the things that I've learned is that if the boats do get full, the Boatmen Association just puts on another boat, so you're never going to be left without and having to stay on the island. Even if you are wanting to get somewhere else, they'll make sure that you can get there. And now the Meridian it's filled up and it's gone, with the second group now stopped. So we should at least get the prime seats on the next boat that comes. And we've just been informed by the couple who are in front of us in the queue that because of how low the tides are, the boats aren't able to get across to Briar until this afternoon. So they seem to think that because that's out of the window and it's not an option for people, it means that all of the boats for all of the other islands are just a lot busier this morning. Hi. Hello. Yeah, you helped me yesterday. No problem. Same seats again?
Sure.
Ish?
Let's go on the other side.
Other side. Well, if this boat looks familiar, it's because we're back on the Sea King, the same boat as we went out on to go and see the lighthouse and I think it's called the Western Rocks out to then at St Agnes yesterday. So, good old trusty boat. Served us well yesterday. Dropped us off at the lower town quay and our boat captain said we need to make sure that we go to the higher town quay as that's where the return ferries back to St Mary's at the end of the day will depart from. It's stunningly beautiful. The white sand beaches, the turquoise waters, even more prolific here I feel in comparison to St Agnes from yesterday. Where it's dropped us off, there's this very smart looking hotel that's got some gorgeous picnic benches on some of the white sand, but then also with very, very pretty, bright, colourful flowers. This island seems to be even cuter and more quaint than St Agnes yesterday, but the footpath that I'm walking down right now, turns out it's not actually a footpath, it's a road because a car just went and passed us. But I'm loving all of the subtropical plants and some are actually growing out of houses' walls. The track's then taken us through Middletown and it's had things like the campsite right on the very edge of it. It doesn't seem to have quite as an amazing view over the water as what the campsite yesterday at St Agnes did, but I can imagine that it's a little bit better sheltered just because of the amount of hedges around it. There's also things like honesty shops and an honesty box too, but we are still keeping on going. We've kind of blitzed through Middletown because we want to get to the higher town because we've heard that there is a bakery there. We wouldn't mind picking up a few baked goods. made it along to the Island Bakery, and there was a selection of some hot savoury dishes, cold savoury dishes, some sweets and also some hot drinks. On the permanent sign outside it had said soups, and I do love a good soup, but unfortunately I think because the weather's so nice and warm at the moment they've not bothered making any up, so instead I've decided to go with a slice of hominy pie. I've heard of this before, but I've never had a chance to try it, and truth be told, I'm not actually 100% certain what's in it. Just looking at it, I think it's going to be potato, cheese, there's some kind of herbs. It looks a little bit like parsley, and then obviously it's sat in some kind of pastry. So, given that I've never had it before. I just can't help but feel like maybe a little bit of chicken or some bacon or something, and it would spice it up a little bit more, but I suppose for a vegetarian dish, it's really nice. I'm feeling very tired at the moment, so I've also picked up a cup of coffee, and then there's some dessert as well. There's a gallery just next door, so we're going to have a quick peek in there, see if there's any artwork that takes our fancy. There wasn't anything that really took our fancy in the gallery, and we decided to also pack away our dessert from the bakery into our backpacks because we found that lots of those teeny tiny birds kept on landing on our picnic table begging for food. And I think what was happening is a lot of the people around us kept on putting crumbs onto their hands and holding it out, and the birds were landing on them and pecking the food out. And I get that it's great for Instagram pictures, but I just know that our human food is really not great for the wildlife, and I just didn't like how they kept on coming up to us and begging, so we've decided to try and find somewhere else to eat our dessert instead. We have made it to Paradise, or otherwise what's known as Par Beach. It's the beach that's right next door to the Higher Town Quay, which is where we'll have to come to get the boat back to St Mary's at the end of the day. As we've been making our way through the island, I've learnt that this island's home to about 140 permanent residents, and they tend to live either in the lower town, which is where we got off of the boat, the middle town, which is what we had to walk through in order to get to the cafe, and then to the higher town, which is both where the sort of cafe slash bakery and also this area is too. I've got a book, and the book was telling me that this island tends to be a lot more green than the other ones. Now for me personally, I just feel like the whole of England is an incredibly green country because of the amount of rain that we get, but I have definitely picked up on the fact that a load of you guys who are international and don't live in the UK who watch my videos often really enjoy seeing the really green lush landscapes, and so I'm curious to know from an international's point of view, do you feel like this island is a bit more green than the other ones, or do you feel like it's very much the same? Because when I look inland, one of the things that I pick up on is the fact that the fields that they've cultivated are really, really small, and they're very much surrounded by hedges. I know that historically on the mainland of England, we used to have really small farmers' fields similar in size to these ones, and that was because before the invention of things like tractors and combine harvesters, when things were having to be done a lot more by hand and maybe horses, it was easier to keep fields that were that small, whereas I don't know if they've just not made them bigger the way in which the mainland has. The other reason that it might be is because the main trade here from the farmers' fields is flowers. So the idea is that you can cut the flowers and put them into vases. We did pass one farm that had a sign outside of it saying, hey, please come on in. You can order some cut flowers and they can be posted to anywhere that you want on the mainland. And I guess it's just because we do have that subtropical climate here, and it doesn't get the frosts that the mainland does, and therefore what you can do with regards to growing flowers is so much more than what the vast majority of the mainland UK is, and probably goes a long way to explain why there's so many wild succulents as well. Certainly where we are in South London, if we had succulents, we would need to be bringing them in the winter to stop them from dying from frost. Apparently on the northern side of this island, it's a lot more rugged and they've not cultivated the land. So I don't think we're going to have time today to get over there, but it is supposed to be a very, very contrasting island. St Martin's has also got a vineyard. I'm not really much of a drinker, so coming along to this wasn't top priority. And then obviously when rocking up today, we've realised that it's not open today on a Monday, so it's not the end of the world. But what they do offer is wine tasting for £6, or you can do a self-guided tour around the vineyard, because they've got some trails that go both through the actual vineyard itself, but also through some woodlands that give some stunning views according to their marketing. Or you can get a discounted combination of both a wine tour tasting and also a self-guided tour for £10. What I love though is that as we were approaching the vineyard's entrance, they've got this honesty box here, and in fairness, they are glass bottles that don't look too dissimilar to wine bottles, but they are in fact apple juice bottles, because as well as the wine, they also sell things such as pressed apple juice. And Andy thought that it was just wine bottles out, which he just thought that is asking for trouble, because naturally you've got to be 18 to be able to drink alcohol. But anyway, you might want to just look up on their website, because looking at their board here, it's saying that they were open on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday of this particular week, and their opening times are all very random. It's like 11 till 2 was yesterday. Tomorrow it's going to be 1 in the afternoon until 4:30. So I think if you're interested, just look up on the internet before you hop on a boat and then get here disappointed. Shortly after the vineyard, the trail took us straight onto this white sandy path, and these sand dunes just rose up out of nowhere with the long gorgeous green grasses, and we've been able to find this path. I mean, it was very overgrown. This just brought us out to this stunning viewpoint much further along Par Beach than where we were earlier on. I am so pleased that we did not catch the first ferry out this morning at 9:15. It would have obviously given us a little bit more time here, but all of the shops that were potentially going to sell the fuse that we tried, which didn't fix the problem with the camera charger, and then on the second attempt went to, weirdly, a pharmacy where you could pick up a universal camera charger or battery charger. And that one was actually successful, and it just means that Andy can be down at the water's edge just taking some photographs and doing what he enjoys. He was incredibly laid back and chilled about the whole situation, and he was like, well, I can just take some pictures on my phone. And if you know anything about being an avid photographer and having learnt how to use DSLR cameras and so on, I knew that he was just trying to put on a brave face, and it's so not the same just taking pictures with your iPhone. So I'm pleased that we caught the later ferry, and I've given him a little bit of time just to be able to get that camera battery charged up. I didn't even talk about the boat ride over here. So this morning, the first boat that we were supposed to have been on filled up really quite quickly, and it left, as I explained. The second boat also filled up and it left, and then we ended up on a third boat, and no sooner had we set sail, we'd barely even left the harbour, and then the boat came to a stop, and everyone on board was just a bit like, what is going on? So it said to me that it wasn't normal practice, and then this other much bigger boat came up alongside us, and a family hopped off of that boat onto ours whilst out in the water. And I don't know if it was just because they'd gotten on the wrong boat, or maybe they'd just missed ours, and so they radioed through to say, stop, we'll just let some guys hop across onto yours. But it definitely seems like it's a very well-oiled machine, this Boatsmen Association. I think my only qualm at the moment with regards to it is there are definitely women who work on board these boats, and also I think for the company as a whole, like in the ticket office and what have you, which I love. But I do feel like maybe the name of the Boatmen's Association needs to be updated, but perhaps that's just the feminist within me coming out. The other part of the boat ride that I loved was just getting to look on to see the other islands that we're going to be visiting later on this week. So we could see both Briar and Tresco, and they look to have gorgeous white sandy beaches, not too dissimilar to the one that we're currently sat on. Off of Par Beach, we scrambled across a lot of the boulders. We then started to hug a very, very overgrown coastal path, and there were a lot of those really spiky plants, and because we're both in shorts, they were just attacking our legs, so we've doubled back a little bit, and we've come up onto this quite high point that's giving a spectacular view looking back. But what we can now see is just ever so slightly inland from that very overgrown coastal path is a nice wide track, and it's heading us towards what looks like the Daymark, so we might as well make our way there since it looks like we're getting quite close. Wow, that book was not joking when it said the north side of the island was completely different. It is so wild and rugged, completely uncultivated. We've got these really prickly plants off to the side, which I don't mind here because of how wide the track is, but these things, they are not my friend. I do not like them. But what I do like is how close this Daymark has come, so it should only be a few more minutes. Andy, on the other hand, isn't referring to it as the Daymark and instead keeps on rather lovingly calling it the Crayon. Made it up to the Daymark, you can just see the mainland of Cornwall right off into the distance. What's interesting about the Daymark is that on the side of it there is a date inscribed into it saying 1637, but it wasn't actually built until 1683. So somewhere down the line someone's got it very, very wrong and it's now permanently etched into the side of it. The Daymark was here as a way to be able to help captains of boats at sea as a navigational aid. And just next door we can see a ruined chapel, and it's where a monk lived whose job it was to man the Daymark. This also is giving sweeping views over the northern side of this island. You've got some gorgeous white sand beaches again on this side, which I wasn't expecting when I heard that it was really, really rugged over here. And we can also see really good views back onto St Mary's, and we can just start to see little bits of Tresco too sticking up overhead. Way off in the distance, the Bishop's Rock lighthouse that we took the boat out to yesterday. Rather than going back on ourselves, we've tried to find a shortcut across the island, and we're trying to get to Higher Town, roundabout's the point where we went to the bakery. And it's quite interesting because it's now taking us through farmers' fields, and I thought that it was going to take us through a bull-filled field, but thankfully there was a bit of a hidden electric fence which separated us from the bull. It's quite pretty because it's in amongst all of the wildflowers, which I think is lovely because obviously this is the island that cultivates a lot of flowers as farm produce, but also you've just got wildflowers dappled throughout too. This is the honesty box that's just next door to the bakery, and it's probably been one of the most well-stocked ones for food. And I had been saying when we were in the co-op that I really didn't want to pick up any eggs and I really didn't want to pick up any jam because I was so sure that we would come across some honesty boxes selling them. So they've got a couple of 6 lots of eggs. And then whilst they do have chutney, I think I'm going to go for the blackberry and apple jam instead, and all of that comes to £5.25. And I just love the fact that there's a pot here, so I can take out, so 50p, a 20. I can't see any 5s in there, so we can just pay a bit extra, chuck the £5 in, chuck the quid in. And that's it. And it's just that honesty that we would be leaving behind the money. We take the right, well, I would take the right amount of change, 5p less than what we actually could have, but I don't care paying 5p more. And then we just take our eggs and our jam. And then we're gonna have this in our oatmeal that we've bought to have for breakfast on the morning, and then these will hard boil and we'll start making up ham and egg bagels or ham and egg sandwiches to have on packed lunch days. So as expected, the Britannia, which I think is the boat we were meant to have been getting on, got full. I think it's even before the time at which we're supposed to start boarding. So that's gone, and another boat's here to pick us up for, I think, round 2. So we are at least 1 boat ahead of what we were this morning. Leggy, run! Look at this!
Everyone.
Okay then, thank you very much. Okay then, sir.
Thank you.
So what are your thoughts on today?
I absolutely love St. Martin's, and I know Andy always takes Mickey out of me because I say this so much on these videos, but I feel like we genuinely only just scratched the surface of this island, and I'm really starting to get why people come back here year after year, because I feel like we're probably not going to have enough time to go back to that island again on this trip. But it is worthwhile going back to. Yeah, really lovely day out. I loved the beaches, but I loved how rugged it was getting up to the Daymark. I loved the food from the bakery, and then the singing of the people at the boat when we got back. I think it's because there's a Scilly Island folk festival going on at the moment, so I'm assuming that they're there from the folk festival. But yeah, I love St. Martin's.